My guest today is Johanna Glavander. She is Swedish in origin, but now living in Dubai. She's had a corporate career in the HR and hospitality spaces, and she's done a little bit of coaching. I'm interested to talk to her today about the transitions that she's been through, how COVID impacted her, what it is that she's now focusing on to support her family. She has two young children, and what it is that, I guess, what freedom is for her and how she's finding it in her own life. Johanna, thank you for joining me today. I've done a quick introduction there, as I always do for my guests, but to dive into it, we started talking before I set this recording. 2020, you mentioned everything changed. Talk me through that. What was that transition for you? What happened? And where were you and what did you move into?
I think first of all, thank you for having me on your podcast. Excited to be here. But I think 2020, just in general, the whole world changed, right? I worked in the hospitality field, and of course, with COVID hitting, everything changed. The hotel where I was currently working closed down, and for 6 months, we were working, not knowing from home, but not knowing what was going to happen, etc. And then eventually in September 2020, I lost my job, which was, of course, a huge transition because I never lost a job before, and I never saw that coming as well. Although, and I remember the last day, like really, I parted ways with the company that I worked for on good terms. It was nothing bad. It was just part of COVID, right? But I remember sitting in the sofa, writing that last email and tears dripping on my face, and my husband coming and asking me, but why are you crying? And I said, yeah, but it's so sad. I'm not going to see my colleagues anymore, and I love my job, etc. And then he said, well, it's not really something that is so, it's sad, right, that you're losing your job, but it's also time for a new beginning. And I really, in that moment, said, you know what, I'm just closing the chapter of a very good chapter that I had in my life. But I made that promise to myself that I'm going to make this matter, that whatever comes after, it was just meant to happen at this moment, at this time. And that kind of how I switched those tears around and kind of focus on, okay, let's make something worthwhile, me losing my job, and just kind of change gears a little bit.
Nice. So I guess there was a period there, it's like, okay, COVID was still happening. You had gained that freedom away from employment. What is it that you decided to move into? What was that sort of the next stage or phase for you?
Yeah, so I had a career in hospitality in the HR department for about 13 years. And I had two small kids. So when COVID hit, my youngest son, Julian, was only 10 months old. And I think that being, a career woman, having small kids in Dubai with traffic, and I was kind of struggling with the fact of always being like this stressed out mom, I don't think in my work, nobody really realized that, but internally I had a lot of stress. I remember my mother-in-law, who was with my oldest son for the first time when I left for the work after my first maternity, she said, Johanna, you left work as one Johanna, and you came back as a completely different person. And I afterwards reflected a lot of this and said, what happened? And I just like this transition of being, first of all, you don't having kids, and then you have kids, and you have this whole responsibilities. So for about 3 years, I was really struggling with that, I think. And then all of a sudden, when that workload was released, and I didn't have that job, I could feel like I could finally breathe a little bit. And my husband had for a long time said to me that, Johanna, I really, really think that you should be going to talk to somebody, talk to a coach, talk to a therapist, talk to anybody. And my response had always been, what do you mean? I don't have time for this. I don't have time to talk to somebody. I don't even have time for myself. Like, how can I actually go and talk to somebody when I'm working all the time? In the weekends, we're always as a family with the kids. How can I carve out whatever time to go and talk to somebody? It was for me out of the question, right? And then all of a sudden, I was here in September, 2020, and I said, well, all of a sudden I have all this time, right? Now I can't postpone this anymore. And I said, okay, maybe it's actually time for me to go and talk to somebody. And I signed up for a coaching program, a few sessions with my first coach. She was fantastic. And it really made me open my eyes to so many things of my own behavior. And I just opened myself up to a completely new world, and that's the world of coaching. And working in HR, funny enough, I always thought that, we are coaching people, but I realized going into coaching myself that I had been more of a mentor before. And then coaching was something that was completely different from the mentoring. But because I could see so many changes in myself and in my own life based on just following or signing up for a coach and speaking to a coach, I decided to become a coach myself. So I did a certification, and then, long story short, I decided to then, after a few months, open my coaching business and kind of go the route on doing coaching instead of, and diverging a little bit from my HR career.
Nice. And so the coaching that you've been doing, what does that look like? Because there are many different, business coaches, life coaches. I position myself as a combination of the two. Some are mindset, some are coaches on the physical side, some are coaches on the spiritual side. What is it that you sort of positioned yourself as? What is the specialism that you focused on?
Yeah, so I really did started off as a life coach, and I think coach for me as well, like you say, it's kind of intercombined. For me, it's very difficult to say I coach just one type of person or one type of problem, because you meet the person wherever it is. But there has been a lot about life coaching, mindset coaching, people-pleasing coaching as well, because I have been especially down that route because I had been trapped in certain people-pleasing tendencies in my own life. And I felt that was something that could really help and support other women with.
So interesting, Ed. Help me understand that in a bit more detail and unpack that. So people-pleasing, what does that actually mean? What are some of the signs or the tendencies? And I'm interested to understand, but for everybody who may be listening or watching, just for them to be able to go, oh, actually, I didn't realize that, or I recognize it in somebody that I know. Just talk me through what that is and what it's like.
Yeah. I mean, you have the like very clear signs of, oh, I cannot say no. And the ones who are normally everybody likes a people pleaser because they are very generally very nice people. And you have some classical things, they don't like confrontations. They will say yes to everything. They don't want to say no. They work themselves to death because they are just so overwhelmed. And then so these are like classical things. If you're thinking like, oh, I know a typical person, she does everything for everybody else, but she never puts herself in the forefront, etc. That's like a typical people pleaser. But what I have realized in the work that I'm doing, and also there are so many different layers of people pleaser. So one layer that I was in the beginning didn't really realize in myself, right, is people pleasing is just that you have a whole set of beliefs that you believe that if I am nice to everybody around me and I behave in a way that is positive for everybody, nothing bad can come to me, or nothing bad can happen to me. So therefore, everything that I do is supposed to be just positive for everybody around me, and it's a way of protecting myself for something bad to happen. Now, normally, this has been rooted in the childhood, or something has made us starting to believe in a certain way. But what I found very interesting is the emotional part, because people pleasers, they're really trying to avoid all these negative emotions, negative feelings, negative responses, negative conversations, anything that is just awkward, right? And that for me is not like a typical people pleasing, but that I find that is so many layers of that. And I think for myself as well, I was maybe not the person who, I wouldn't call myself the classical people pleaser. At the beginning, I would, of course, I'm a nice person, but I could say no. I could, draw lines and set boundaries as well. But for me, it was really more about, trying to avoid going into difficult conversations, speaking up my mind, expressing anger, and really doing a lot of things to kind of avoid feeling those negative emotions because I simply wasn't comfortable with them.
So would you say then that, part of it is about suppressing who you are and maybe what you're thinking or feeling? Because, what you put out into the world is to try and ensure that everybody else feels comfortable with the situation. And actually, is that something then that can build up over time and it starts to be a negative spiral?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you have kind of like goody points or brown points that you define yourself and your own worth by how much good and positive things you receive from other people. So if I receive negative things, I don't get those extra brownie points on me. I only receive the negative things. So therefore I don't see myself worthy of whatever it is. So the more things that I do so that I get a positive response to others, the better I feel about myself. But if I go into conversations with others or I have to disappoint people or they might be upset with me, I'm not earning those brownie points. And therefore, I don't really feel so good about myself. So it also has a lot to do with your self-esteem, your self-worth, how you see yourself, etc. So many things, so many layers on this people pleasing.
Yeah, no, but it's interesting to understand that. When I talk about my 12 chains model, a couple of the things that I talk about, relationships being one. You have positive and you have negative relationships, responsibilities, those that you want and those that are given to you that you may not want, priorities, your priorities versus things that people have asked you to do that are their priorities. And I guess if you're a people pleaser, even if there's a negative relationship, you may still try and please that person. If there's somebody else's responsibility, again, you may try and take that action. If there's somebody else's priority, you may try and do what it is that they're asking you to do, just so that you get that positive response from them, even if, as you said, it uses all of your time, uses all of your energy. So I think it's important for people to understand that actually that is a behavior that we can change. And if you are somebody like that and you keep going down that path, there's the potential for it to work against you in the long run and I guess start to be negative from the inside to the outside.
Yeah, I mean there are a lot of good things that you're saying there. Definitely everything that you said with your chains there, it definitely applies to people pleasing as well, and it kind of goes into like this negative spiral that keeps on repeating. Because if I do something when somebody is disappointed, where you said like I'm saying yes to things that I don't want to do, and then I do it, but then I feel angry with myself. I feel disappointed with myself because I really don't want to go to this, whatever it is. Could be an event, could be a party, could be a dinner, could be an extra project that you take on work, whatever it is, but you just don't speak up for yourself. So you say yes, 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 and you keep on loading yourself. And eventually, but you beat yourself up as well because you feel guilty, because then the guilt, it keeps on coming. And then you feel bad for feeling guilty because you are this nice person that is perfect all the time, right? You shouldn't even have feelings of not wanting to please somebody else. So then you beat yourself up about it and it keeps on going. You're just in this spiral that keeps on just turning and turning, and eventually just need to kind of like have a needle and be able to just burst that this vicious cycle so you can get out of it.
Nice. What are some of the tips or suggestions that you would have for somebody who suddenly, is listening to this and goes, oh, actually, yeah, I recognize either, for myself or for somebody I know? Are there a couple of things that you would, suggest them to do or a couple of initial steps to take?
I mean, first, I really like, there's a big coach, life coach in the US. Her name is Brooke Castillo, and she has this model that I absolutely love, and I use that a lot with my clients as well. It's called a self-coaching model, and it's basically, and I think this applies a lot to people pleasing, because I think as a first step, it's very important to just understand. First, becoming self-aware about how do you people please, how often does it happen, where do you people please, and then why. So first of all, I would say if you have a habit tracker, if not, if somebody reach out, I can give you a habit tracker. But a habit tracker, just simply writing whatever it is that you're doing for everybody else, that you actually don't really want to do. And then track it for a week. How often does that happen? Let me get a stupid example. Somebody calls you to go for a walk maybe in the evening, but you really don't want to go because you're really tired, but your friend really wants to have a chat with you, but you're up to here and all you want is just to go early to bed, but still you're going to go say yes. Track it for a week or for a month and see how many times does this happen. And then once you have like a kind of a track record, you see, okay, do I have an issue with this, or does this occasionally happen? Because of course, sometimes you will have a friend who's calling you and it says, actually, I want to go for a walk. I really need you. And even though you do not want to, you are going to say yes. But does that mean that you're a people pleaser? No, because this is just sometimes things we do, right? But if this has happened every week, every other day, and you keep on saying like, okay, well, actually, I end up spending so much time doing things that I really don't want to do. Well, then maybe you should consider like, why can you just not say no? And that's where this coaching model comes in, right? Is try to understand when somebody asks me something and I want to say no, what is going on in my mind? And that's where the people pleasing very often comes like, oh my God, what are they going to say? They're going to be very angry with me. They're going to be upset. They will not like me. And you work yourself up into all the scenarios, what might be happening. And when you are thinking all these thoughts of, oh, the worst case scenarios that can happen, already I can feel my heart is pounding right now because you feel overwhelmed. You cannot hardly breathe. And like, or just the thought of those, just worst case scenario that you are not going to be liked or be seen as that perfect person who is always there for everybody else, is just you just can't take it, right? And you are just trying to avoid that emotions as so much because you just can't, and you want to escape from the emotion. So what do? You say yes, right? That's why you say yes, because you want to avoid. And the moment you say yes, what happens? Okay, well, at least I didn't disappoint that person right now because I'm going to go on that walk. The person is still going to like me. They're not going to be angry, etc. But then I come back to this vicious cycle, right? Because what is the outcome of this? Yeah, well, now you have to go on that walk, for example, although you didn't want to. And then you, as a result, have less sleep or less, you couldn't go to the gym or you couldn't spend time with your family or whatever it is. And you beat yourself up for not saying no, etc. And it keeps on repeating and repeating. And the things that can happen with this, when you do this for a long period of time, right? You're going to build up so much anger inside of you, so much resentfulness, I think it's called in English. But you're going to be like a ticking bomb, right? So eventually you are going to burst because at one point you just cannot say yes to everybody else. And you're just going to burst. And we do, as people please, we don't burst nicely, right? We don't say, well, I'm sorry, I can't say no. But it's somebody, you're probably going to scream at somebody eventually. And most of the time it's the ones who are closest to us, because your bucket is just full. You can't take it anymore. And then you are going to have an explosion of something. So if anything of this says, like talks to you, the one who is listening, if you have those outbursts because you feel like enough is enough, that could be a sign of, instead of just being able to talk normally and just say no or express feelings, etc., in a normal way, but you feel that you're pushing yourself to the limit until there is no more limit and you just have those outbursts. That's a very common sign of people pleasing. But I can really urge you to just look at your behaviors. So first of all, look and see how often does it happen, those habits, people pleasing habits. What is it that you do for other people and how often do they happen? And second of all, trying to understand, like, when you do them, what is going on right before you do this? What is happening? What is happening in your thoughts? What are you thinking? And I like the tool of just saying, do a thought download, just pause yourself, put your mobile on like 1-2 minutes, take a piece of paper and just write down anything that goes on in your mind right now. And then afterwards, you can kind of sit and look at the paper and see, why can I not say no? Or why can I not do this thing? if that makes sense. So these are my really tips. Sorry, I went on a little tangent here, but I feel really passionate about this.
No, it's good. Again, it's useful to understand from your perspective, and the fact that actually you've said you self-identify, certainly in the past, of having that sort of behavior. So to share those tips and, you know, some of those tools, I think is really powerful and can help other people who listen or watch. Moving on from that, I just want to sort of slightly different direction, but it's all related to this. You've now had a period, obviously, away from the corporate world. You have been able to spend time with your children as, you know, those early years. Before we started recording, you mentioned one element of freedom for you was being able to live abroad. Okay, I'm interested to now hear from you, given that you have gone through that transition, you've done some coaching, you've spent some time with the family. What does freedom now mean to you? And either how have you obtained it, or what are you looking to do next to find it?
Excellent question. So many things. I think when I started this journey, I would really say that I've been on a journey the last 3 years. I think now seeing back, it was probably like a little midlife crisis. Very, very often that happens. I was 37, 38. You know, I met the husband, I had the kids, I had the house, I had a career, I had the money, I had the freedom. I had so many things, but still it just had a feeling of, okay, but I wasn't happy. Like, what's next? And I found myself there in the middle of COVID, like, what's next? Am I just now going to work for another, 20 years, 30 years until retirement? And is this going to be what I want to do? And I think that the journey I have been has definitely been like a self-reflection journey, and it has been so beneficial, and I have loved every moment of it. And before, something that really bothered me a lot when working in a corporate job is not having the freedom when it comes to location and when it comes to time. So I always used to say, if I could just have a job when I can be at home and like at 4 o'clock and be with my kids, etc., that I don't always have to be like the 10 hours at the office, etc. That was something that I struggled with 4 weeks off per year when I live in one country, and then my husband and me are from 2 different countries. So like juggling all of this, I found that very difficult. Now, having all the freedom, having the opportunity to spend 2 months of the year in Europe with the close family, I start now really reflecting, but what is it that I really want? Because I thought that's exactly what it is that I want. I love the coaching, 100% do I want to continue the coaching, but there are certain things that I miss. And I miss being around a team. I miss hospitality. I miss being out and about and like really dress up to go to work. I miss being able to have the feeling of coming home and people say, "Hey, Mama, where you been? How was your day?" Versus just being at home, although working with clients. But I miss that, connectedness. But it has been kind of a journey for me as well to admit it to myself that I actually miss it. Because as I am a people pleaser, and I'm working with a coach right now, and we're actually working on how can I still prioritize my own needs while still caring from everybody else. And so I have decided to go back to the corporate world, to go back to hospitality and HR, and then incorporate everything that I have learned about coaching, because I do need, and I do strongly believe that coaching is definitely needed. It's definitely needed in hospitality, well, in any sector that you work in, but in hospitality as well, especially when you work with young adults that often are coming from here in Dubai, from Asia, Africa, etc. And they might not necessarily have the life skills yet because they are young, right? And just to be able to help and educate them on a lot of different things, and also from a management side as well, if I would be able to equip somebody with the coaching skills that I have, and how we can then transform cultures, how we can transform teams, how we can increase productivity everywhere if we do it the coaching way. I am very excited to start going down that route as well on my coaching journey. But I think as well, and I go back to that, to be able to just allow, that's what I'm doing with my own people pleasing, because in one way I am a people pleaser. And now it's been pleasing my kids, right? Pleasing the family. They have enjoyed me being more available at home. But now it's actually, what do I want moving forward? Because for me, it's not necessarily the best to continue just being at home, but I need to get myself out there. So that for me feels right now as a freedom to be able to actually voice that and say, I might not have the time flexibility or freedom or the location flexibility that I had before, but just the freedom to choose what it is that I really, really want to do, and I have had the freedom to allow myself the time to come to those decisions as well. I think that has been very powerful for me.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you say that, because a lot of people automatically go, time freedom, money freedom, location freedom, but actually freedom to choose is an important freedom to have. If you're a people pleaser, then actually, I guess to an extent, you are not giving yourself that choice because you're saying yes to everybody else. So, for you making that decision and saying, actually, yeah, I want to get back into the corporate world. It may not be, the traditional 9 to 5. You may be able to find something that's a little different because your experience has changed, your view of the world has changed based on what's happened over the past couple of years. Maybe it's okay, can you work with a company and you drop in and support the HR function via coaching for 5 different companies? Maybe that's one path. I'm sure there are lots of options out there. And maybe that's a way to try and combine, okay, now I still get some time freedom, I get the opportunity to support and use the coaching. Okay, how can I create that dream situation, or the best scenario possible?
But I must say, before I didn't even know there was such a term of time freedom, location freedom. I didn't even know that it even existed. I think that a lot has opened up in during COVID or after COVID as well. But just being able to choose, that is so powerful.
Nice. And so just as a final comment then, while we're here, what would you say to someone who, aside from the bit that we touched on with people pleasing, someone who feels stuck or frustrated in their current situation? Is there any words of wisdom, guidance, suggestions that you would have for them, based on your own experience and the journey that you've been on?
Yeah, I would like to take the help of a quote, something that I read like a long time ago, but it's a Swedish author. His name is Ulf Lundell. And he, in one of his books, it was a really small paragraph, but it said like this. Sometimes when you're on a journey, on a train journey, you just need to step off the train, go to the cafe that is there on the train station, and just sit down, have a cup of coffee, and just look at people, reflect a little bit, really reflect on where do you want to go next before you get to the ticket counter and buy your next ticket. For me, and I even get chills when I listen to that now, but for me, that was very powerful. And it was probably like 15, 20 years ago since I read that, but there was something that stuck. So if somebody feels really, really stuck, I think you need to allow yourself to take the time to just figure out. So go and sit in the train stations, the cafe in the train station, right? I was stuck for a long time before COVID happened, but I didn't realize that I was stuck. I was stuck in this spiral of being very stressed out, of people pleasing, etc. I didn't know that I was stuck. Only did I know when I could take the time to just get away from everything and just really, I think, reflect, I would say, become more self-aware. So that would be a first thing. Sports can change so many things. And sports doesn't mean that you have to go to the gym. It doesn't mean that you have to play football or be in a team. It could be anything, but it could be yoga, it could be meditation, it could be going for a walk, whatever it is, but you need to move your body. Because if you're feeling stuck, you probably have a lot of energy that is just stale and you just feel stuck in your body. I know I was. My first 6 months when I lost the job there, I lost 20 kilos. And that took me off on a completely different path, because I said, oh my God, if I can take charge and change my weight just because I put my mind to it, then I can change anything. And so moving in any shape and form, and just carve out that time. And I know that taking the time is very difficult if you're working full time, or if you're a full stay home mom or dad, and you just have so many responsibilities and there is just not enough time, right? But also just trying to see where can you find the time then for you to reflect. And one thing that I started was the morning routine, because before I didn't have a morning routine. It was everybody, from the moment the alarm went on, I was just there to please everybody else. Everybody got everything from you. So set up the first hour that you really wake up for you and do the things that you want to do. So if that could be journaling, some reflection time, reading, anything that you think that you normally don't have time for, but just to calm yourself and to get more in tune with what's going on in your head here. So journaling can really help you as well. These are some tips that I really could think. So sports, set up a morning routine, and carve out some time for yourself.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that, Johanna. I appreciate your comments and insights today.
Absolutely. Pleasure being here.